Hey guys, tonight we stand at the misty edge of the Rhine before dawn light breaks over mist-wreathed waters. You can almost taste the cold air sliding across your skin as you lean forward, toes grazing the gentle current. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time below. I love knowing where in the world you're winding down with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lean in, chest rising with anticipation, as the pale glow of early light reveals wooden stakes and rough-hewn logs marking the riverbank. The air smells of damp earth mixed with the faint tang of reeds. In these moments before activity stirs, you're acutely aware of every breath. There's a hush, almost reverent, as you and dozens of your fellow legionaries prepare to greet the river's edge. Although we like to imagine Roman soldiers as perpetually toughened, you might be surprised to learn that bathed bodies were considered a mark of discipline and status. Yet, scholars still debate whether this ritual began primarily for hygiene's sake or evolved from simple military exercise, pushing tired muscles to wakefulness before drills commence. Your boots crunch against gravel as you near the shallow banks. You pause, feeling that slight tremor of hesitation any sensible person would have before plunging into cold water. The Rhine, after all, is no tropical lagoon, it's the watery frontier between empire and untamed lands. You watch fellow soldiers strip down to basic tunics, their breath puffing in the crisp air. Some share quiet jokes, one murmurs that if the water doesn't wake him, the prickly grass underfoot surely will. You can't help but smirk, appreciation rising in your chest. Even disciplined warriors indulge in a little morning banter. Sliding in, the water envelopes you up to your knees, then waist. It's as if 1,000 needles prick every nerve ending, and you gasp, steadying yourself with a hand on a mossy rock. Your tunic clings heavy and cold, but you shrug it off, letting it sink into the current. Beneath the surface, you feel the stones shift underfoot, smooth from centuries of flow. You push forward, each step a test of resolve as the river's chill seeps deep. You can almost hear a heartbeat quicken in your chest, the same rhythm that will power you through tight formations and spear drills later today. Once fully immersed, you tilt back, letting that first brutal shock wash across your shoulders. The water's force tangles your hair, and you blink as droplets sparkle in the dim half-light. You're breathing deeply now, inhaling crisp aromas, river moss, distant pines, and a faint whisper of smoke from the campfires still smoldering upriver. You let your arms float, collecting water in cupped hands, and splash it across your face. The sensation is acute, jolting every sense into sharp relief. You remember the medic's advice, cleanliness equals strength of mind, he'd said, voice low in the lantern's glow. There's a mainstream fact there. Roman military camps often included basic baths by rivers, designed not simply for vanity but to stave off disease in tight quarters. Still, there's that lingering question, did these rituals develop because soldiers craved comfort? Or were they an early experiment in regimented exercise to harden bodies? The debate circles through your thoughts like a restless bird, and you let it hover as you lean forward for another splash. As you continue, the river begins to lighten to silvery blue. You submerge your arms, elbows brushing the current, and feel a quiet companionship in the shared ritual. Nearby, a centurion stands on a raised plank, observing ranks with a nod, part batman, part disciplinarian. His presence is a subtle reminder that even vulnerability before cold water must not undermine order. You note how the riverbank is divided into neat sections, logs placed just far enough apart for private elbow room. It's a delicate balance, comrades shoulder to shoulder, yet each man carving out a sliver of solitude in the early morning hush. You breathe out, chest rising in a slow, satisfied exhalation. There's an intimacy in these moments with the Rhine, the kind that modern showers simply can't replicate. You notice the pale green moss clinging to stones, the way the current flows around each limb, and you realize how much more you're awake now than any cup of strong wine might achieve. The cold has sharpened your senses, and even as you lift your feet to step onto the bank, you feel paradoxically lighter, more alert, shivering just slightly. You step out onto damp grass, feeling the rhythm of the day shift beneath your feet. You pat your arms with a coarse linen cloth, the fabric rough but comforting. In the next moments, you'll move on to tubs of warmed water and more elaborate cleansing rites, but right now, in this pristine river baptism, you're fully present. You stand tall, are aware of your own pulse, and recognize that this simple river ritual has already set a tone for the day, disciplined, refreshed, and quietly triumphant against fatigue. You shuffle forward, feet squelching gently in the damp earth as your body adjusts to the shock of the river's chill. Up ahead, the camp is beginning to murmur with life. Cook fires are being coaxed back into flame, horses nicker somewhere behind the stables, and armor clangs faintly in the distance. But here on the bathing stretch, things remain soft, quiet, deliberately unhurried. You and a few dozen others move along a narrow path toward the makeshift bath stations, just far enough from the main encampment to grant some semblance of privacy, but still within view of the watchtowers. It's a strange mix, utilitarian and humble, but with traces of careful thought. The Romans, after all, didn't just bathe, they orchestrated cleanliness. At first glance, the bathing area seems simple: wooden screens tied together with twine, low tables made from chopped logs, and several open barrels brimming with river water, some still steaming slightly from the nearby fire pits. But the layout is no accident. You pass a signpost scrawled in Latin, likely more symbolic than necessary, but it marks the order: cold rinse, oil application, scrape, then wash. It's all about flow, direction, ritual. If someone were to sketch the design, it might almost resemble a primitive spa blueprint, tucked into the margins of a campaign map. You find your place behind one of the wooden screens, more for windbreaking than privacy, but still appreciated. A fellow soldier named Lucius grunts beside you as he wrestles with a stubborn sandal strap. You'd think they'd invent a better buckle by now, he mutters. You snort softly in agreement. The camaraderie is ever present but muted, like warm coals under ash. Everyone's cold, half awake, and deeply aware that within the hour, swords will clang and orders will bark. For now, the screens and steam create a fragile boundary between tension and ease. You roll up your sleeves and reach for a cloth laid across a low stool. It's coarse linen again, standard issue, smelling faintly of smoke and mint, probably from being stored too close to the infirmary tent. You wring it out in one of the smaller tubs, catching glimpses of steam curling upward. Your fingers dip into the water and you sigh, lukewarm. Not quite the heated luxury of Rome's thermae, but infinitely better than the icy punch of the Rhine. The fire cauldrons nearby crackle as soldiers keep them fed with driftwood, dried dung bricks, and the occasional snapped plank from an old storage crate. Resourceful doesn't begin to cover it. The camp's engineers had even rigged up a shallow trough system that guides warmed water toward the tubs. At least until someone kicks it out of alignment and has to wrestle with it in their towel. That happens often enough to be an unspoken part of the routine. You settle onto a worn bench, sighing again, this time deeper, more relaxed. You pour a wooden ladle of warm water over your shoulder. It hits with a satisfying slap and trickle, chasing goosebumps off your arms. Another ladle for your neck, then your chest. The rhythm is soothing. You start to forget that you're in a military outpost and not some rustic countryside inn. That's the charm of this ritual. However Spartan it may be, it offers a momentary illusion of gentleness. Lucius leans back against the bench beside you, his eyes closing for a moment. Back home, he says, voice thick with nostalgia, my mother used to scent the bath with rosemary. You nod, not interrupting. Stories like this waft through the bathing area like steam, soft, half-formed, and often left without an ending. Another soldier chuckles nearby. Back home, my bath was a bucket and my brother waiting to dump it on my head. Quiet laughter follows. A centurion passes behind the screen, his sandals slapping the packed dirt. He doesn't stop or say anything, just walks slowly past. His presence reminds everyone to keep moving. Time here is limited. The entire bath station is designed for rhythm, not lingering. You scrub with efficient, circular motions, letting your mind wander but your hands stay disciplined. You notice how the screens, though crude, are carefully arranged to face away from the main path. Someone, likely a clever camp architect, decided long ago that the illusion of privacy was worth a few extra minutes with hammer and rope. You admire the practicality of it. Rome may be hundreds of miles away, but its sense of order is always just a few cubits away. Whether in stone walls or bath screen alignments, the tubs themselves are worn from constant use, some ringed with lime deposits, others patched with bits of iron to keep their shape. One, humorously enough, has a carved message along the rim, property of Legio I Minor Via, do not pilfer. You run your hand along it, the letters softened by time and use, and smile. Even here, amid dirt and discipline, someone had time to make a joke. You lean forward again, scooping more water and letting it run down your back in lazy rivulets. This time, you don't flinch. The warmth has soaked into your bones, and you've crossed that invisible threshold between wakefulness and readiness. You're no longer reacting to the cold, you're present. Aware, in control. The ritual has done its job. As you reach for a linen drying cloth, you glance sideways at the others. Some are quietly humming to themselves. One is sketching something with his fingertip on the fogged-up barrel lid, perhaps a battle diagram, or maybe just a doodle. In this moment, no one's a hero, or a rank, or a title. Just bodies, breath, and steam. And outside the screens, the river still flows. The mist hasn't lifted yet, but the sun is considering it. You stand slowly, arms feeling less stiff, skin tingling where warmth meets morning breeze. The station is already filling with new arrivals, and someone starts humming the marching cadence early, earning a few sleepy groans. It's nearly time to move on. You stretch, slow, deliberate, satisfied. The fire pops again. Water sloshes. And just beyond the edge of the camp, the faintest rustle in the reeds suggests the world is waking up with you. You sling the damp towel over one shoulder as you step away from the bathing station, muscles loose now, your skin flushed with warmth. The Rhine glitters distantly, morning fog beginning to lift in ribbons, revealing silhouettes of trees and the vague line of the opposite bank. Somewhere out there lies Germania, foreign, wild, and unsettling. But right now, your world shrinks to the soft squish of earth beneath your feet and the creak of your tunic as it clings and dries. You follow the slow trickle of men heading back toward the castra, the camp. It's still quiet, save for the murmurs of waking voices, the clank of pots from the cook's tents, and the muffled thump of a horse shaking off its sleep. You pass under a low wooden arch, marking the inner camp boundary. Above it, a half-faded plaque reads Disciplinarit Salus, Discipline and Health. Somehow fitting, a junior officer hands you a thin flask of watered wine as you enter the main path. It's still early, so it's mostly water. The faintest hint of flavor meant less for pleasure and more to signal, you're clean. You've done your part. You sip slowly, letting the coolness swirl over your tongue. It tastes faintly of metal from the cup, but you appreciate the gesture. A reward, however minor. At the center of camp lies the valetudinarium, the infirmary and hygiene hub. Today's washing ritual is far from over. The Romans, ever practical, led their bathing practices. River rinse was just Act 1. Now, you queue for oiling and scraping, part of a daily hygiene routine that's far more thorough than most modern people imagine for a soldier's life. You ease into line, joining others who've towel dried and are now rubbing arms and necks to stay warm. The man ahead of you hums tunelessly, the one behind yawns so hard you hear his jaw pop. Someone sneezes, which causes a ripple of theatrical reactions. One man crosses himself dramatically, another mutters something about the Rhine fever. You chuckle under your breath. Every group, even legionaries, has its inside jokes. The Strigeling station stands just ahead, a series of benches with small pots of olive oil lined on a rough plank shelf. The air smells faintly of resin and metal. Wooden boxes beneath the benches collect the used oil and whatever grime comes with it, scraped off skin with curved bronze tools called strigils. They look like little sickles, almost elegant if you ignore what they're used for. You sit, and an attendant, likely a slave assigned to the medical corps, offers you a dish of warmed oil. It glistens amber in the light, and you tilt your chin as he pours a thin stream across your shoulder. The oil seeps into your skin with the heat of the sun itself, and you sigh involuntarily. There's something oddly luxurious about it. Strange, isn't it, to find a moment of peace in a military outpost, in a cold northern forest, with barbarians supposedly lurking just over the river. The strigil glides over your back, gentle but firm. The sensation is unlike anything else, part massage, part scratch, part slow exfoliation. The curved blade lifts oil, dead skin, and grime in slow ribbons, which the attendant catches in a small cloth. The rhythmic scrape sounds almost hypnotic. You close your eyes and let your mind drift. And drift it does, to the question of just how widespread this kind of bathing ritual really was. Some scholars suggest it was reserved for elite units, or only in permanent frontier stations with proper supply chains. Others argue that daily washing, even basic river dips, was a non-negotiable part of life for all legionaries, regardless of rank. After all, discipline was cleanliness, and cleanliness was Roman. A particularly ticklish pass under your ribs jolts you back to the present. You stifle a laugh, which earns a smirk from the attendant. Sensitive ribs, he says quietly, the faintest trace of a local accent blending with Latin. You nod. It's true, he moves to your arms, scraping in slow downward arcs, following the grain of your muscle. You glance at your skin, slightly red, tingling, but smooth. Someone at the next bench lets out a deep moan of pleasure, and his neighbor scolds, "It's a scrape, not a massage, don't get any ideas." More laughter. The air here is lighter than on the training grounds or the watchtower. When the scraping is done, you're handed another towel, dry, clean, slightly softer than the first. You use it to blot the oil, then wipe your feet on a woven mat that's seen better days. You stand again, limbs moving freely, skin warm and alive. The sensation is hard to describe. You feel polished, like a statue, freshly chiseled and wiped clean. No sword in hand yet, no shield, no armor. Just you, fresh and slightly gleaming. As you walk back toward your tent, you pass the bath log. Yes, there's a list. A scribe seated under a canopy scratches your name onto a wax tablet. Next to it, he records the time. Bathing, you realize, isn't just personal, it's official. If you missed today, someone would notice. Someone would find out. It's not just about staying clean. It's about showing up. Near your tent, the warm-up stations have begun to stir. Soldiers stretch, polish gear, adjust bindings on their sandals. A few stand with arms folded, watching the sky as if trying to divine the weather by cloud shape alone. The air smells of oiled leather and toasted grains. Breakfast is near, but you take a moment longer to just be. To savor the warmth in your shoulders, the clean feeling along your arms, the looseness in your joints. You sit on a low crate just outside your tent flap, watching a pair of birds peck at something in the dirt. You take another sip of watered wine, now a bit warmer from being held too long. No matter. It's still pleasant. And you feel, oddly, like you've accomplished something already today. Not a battle. Not a patrol. But a small reclaiming of comfort in a world that doesn't offer it freely. You shift your weight on the crate, the wood creaking softly under you. Your freshly cleaned body leans forward into the morning air, now dry enough that your tunic begins to lose its cling. A slight breeze trails down the main road through camp, stirring the fabric and carrying with it a hint of toasted barley from the mess tent. It's almost time for the morning meal, ientaculum, but you know you have a few quiet moments left. The camp, like any well-planned Roman outpost, is a grid of calm and control. Everything is where it's supposed to be, barracks to one side, workshops further down, latrines cleverly positioned downwind and downslope. Even the livestock is corralled in mathematically neat pens. You realize it's this very predictability, this carved-from-stone routine, that makes Roman military life almost meditative. Especially when it comes to something like bathing. Not just hygiene. Not just order. But rhythm. You stretch your legs in front of you, admiring your now dusty but clean feet. The juxtaposition makes you smirk. You wonder, absently, how often your sandals contribute to your need for constant scrubbing. They're worn, straps softened and darkened by age, but still dutiful. A lot like you, across the path, a pair of auxiliaries is preparing to head toward the riverbank, likely part of the second bathing wave. These are non-Roman-born troops, pulled from all over the empire, Numidians, Gauls, Syrians, Batavians. You watch them move with ease, joking quietly in a mix of Latin and something more melodic, probably Iberian. They've adopted the Roman way of cleanliness, too, though their home traditions likely differed. You imagine desert baths, stone cisterns, or even scented sands rubbed on the skin. Maybe here, alongside the Rhine, everyone becomes just a little bit Roman after all. Back near the infirmary, the oil pots are being refilled and the strigils dipped into basins of water for cleaning. The bath attendants work quickly, efficiently, like a well-oiled, no pun intended, machine. One of them wipes down a bench with a damp cloth and then steps back to stretch his arms skyward, his spine audibly popping. Even they have their rituals. A young legionary, barely more than a boy, shuffles past with a towel over one arm and a nervous look on his face. You remember your first weeks, the overwhelming noise of commands, the awkwardness of shared routines. Bathing in front of others had felt strange then. But now? It's almost therapeutic. There's a strange intimacy in these communal rhythms, something grounding. Inside the mess tent, the clang of pots grows louder. You catch the scent of warm porridge thickened with lentils, maybe a hint of dried figs if the supply wagons arrived on time this week. Someone's burned a bit of the morning bread, you can smell the blackened crust even from here. It's oddly comforting, like the crackle of a campfire or the dry rasp of a whetstone. Imperfection means life is happening. You rise, brushing crumbs of bark off your tunic, and make your way toward the tent. On the way, you pass a row of soldiers rubbing their arms down with a kind of herbal paste, marjoram and vinegar, judging by the scent. It's not standard, but word travels fast when someone finds a skin remedy that works. Especially in the damp climate near the Rhine, fungal infections were everyone's problem. Baths helped, but the camp had its own quiet pharmacology network, knowledge traded like coins. At the tent's edge, a clerk from the quartermaster's office steps aside to let you pass, balancing a pile of cloth bundles wrapped with twine. Replacement towels, maybe. Or laundered undergarments. Either way, he looks thrilled to be indoors. You offer a nod, and he answers with a lopsided grin. You find your place at the table, a long plank set on trestles, and take the shallow bowl offered to you. The porridge is thick today, slightly gummy, but not unpleasant. You stir in a pinch of salt from your pouch and begin to eat slowly. Across from you, a grizzled officer recounts a story about a misfired catapult during a training session, complete with sound effects and wild hand gestures. You smile, letting the rhythm of his voice blend with the clinking of spoons and the low hum of sleepy soldiers trading banter. Someone mentions the evening bath shift. Apparently the water barrels are warmer just before sunset. There's a moment of wistful silence. Morning bathing is routine. Evening bathing is something closer to indulgence. You tuck the thought away. If the day goes well, perhaps you'll be back by the fire pits before dark. A call sounds from outside, a single note on a curved horn. Not an alarm. Not yet a command. Just a signal that drill will begin soon. Around you, men begin finishing their food, wiping mouths, stretching fingers, pulling on braces. But no one rushes. Not here. Not in this brief, oiled bubble of warmth and routine. You glance down at your arms, still faintly glistening, and think about how long it took the Romans to perfect this habit. It's easy to imagine the early days, grimy, hurried, improvised. But centuries later, here you are. Part of a legacy of water and oil, steam and rhythm. A ritual that says, even amid conquest, hygiene matters. Someone taps your shoulder. It's Lucius again, back from wherever he vanished after the river. Strigil nicked me, he grumbles, pointing to a thin red line on his shoulder. Means it worked, you reply. He grunts and slides onto the bench beside you, digging into his bowl with the urgency of a man who missed breakfast yesterday. Another sip of water. Another breath. You rise, finally, the day beginning to stretch its arms around you. The warm glow from bathing is fading now, giving way to the cool armor of discipline and duty. But somewhere, under the layers of linen and metal, that warmth remains. Like embers tucked beneath the ash of routine, as you leave the tent, your thoughts return to the river's edge, to the soft scrape of the Strigil, and to the way steam rose from the wooden tubs like spirits taking their leave. You wonder, briefly, if the Germanic tribes across the Rhine bathe like this. If their warriors also scrub their arms in the morning fog and stretch their backs beside fire-heated barrels. Maybe. Maybe not. But the thought feels oddly comforting. The horn sounds again, this time more insistent. You tighten your belt, settle your tunic, and step into the day, clean, oiled, ready. The Rhine watches silently, still moving, always watching. The training yard is already alive with motion by the time you reach it, your freshly bathed skin now cooled under the morning sun. It's the kind of sunlight that doesn't promise warmth, just brightness. A sharp clarity that highlights every scuff on your sandals, every chip in your shield, every wrinkle in a superior officer's frown. You fall into formation. The stone beneath your feet is cold and pitted, having weathered countless drills before yours. You grip your practice sword, its wooden blade slick from recent use, and begin the familiar rhythm: step, thrust, retreat. Your muscles, still loose from the bath and scraping, move with ease. There's a whisper of soreness, but it feels good, earned. Even, today's session isn't too grueling. A series of repetitive movements designed more for discipline than exhaustion. Your centurion paces along the row, barking out corrections that sound more like threats, but with an edge of weary fondness. His voice, like everything in this camp, is part of the routine now. You barely hear the words anymore, just the tone. It keeps you upright, aligned, focused. As you drive your blade forward again, you feel a light spray of sweat break across your brow. Not the grime of battle, but the clean effort of a body doing its job. And you can't help but marvel, again, at how the Romans tied hygiene to military success so directly. It wasn't just about avoiding disease, though that was part of it. It was about control. Clean body, clean mind. A dirty soldier was an undisciplined one. There's debate among modern scholars, you remember, about just how strict those bathing routines were, especially on campaign. Did every legionary really get a daily scrub, even while on the move? Or was that idealized, exaggerated in letters home to Rome, where audiences expected tales of efficiency and order? The archaeological evidence is mixed. Some sites have elaborate bath complexes. Others show signs of hasty, makeshift wash stations, clay basins, shallow ditches, heated stones for boiling water. Perhaps, like all things military, it depended on the commander. You pause at the centurion's signal. A short break. Around you, men drop their swords and stretch out tired backs. Someone's muttering about shin splints. Another adjusts the linen padding beneath his armor. You pull your own tunic away from your chest, letting the air reach your still sensitive skin. Not far off, two soldiers are discussing who'll be assigned to balneator duty this evening. The bathkeepers, the unsung heroes of military hygiene. Their job isn't glorious, heating the water, managing the fire pits, lugging buckets from the river, refilling oil pots, scraping benches. But they're essential. Without them, the whole rhythm collapses. One of the men groans as his name is called. Guess I'm scrubbing benches instead of gambling tonight. You smile. Bathing isn't just about the act itself, it's a system. An ecosystem, really. For every soldier soaked in oil and scraped clean, there's a chain of hands behind him, ensuring it all runs smoothly. From the slaves who maintain the equipment to the scribes tracking attendance to the officers who enforce it with fines or lost rations. Your rest ends with another sharp call, and you're back in line, wooden sword at the ready. The motions return: step, thrust, step, pivot. The sequence is so ingrained, you find your mind drifting. You remember hearing that on the southern frontier, near Egypt, some legions bathed in tiled complexes with mosaics underfoot. Steam rooms with copper boilers. Here on the Rhine, it's a bit more rustic. But still, warm oil and a strigil are no small comfort. You think of the camaraderie that comes with these shared habits. There's something strangely bonding about being half-naked in a room full of equally tired men, each of you surrendering your grime to the same tools. You learn things about each other, where the scars are. Who flinches during scraping, who sings under their breath during the hot soak. These aren't the things you'd write in a report, but they matter. Another break. This time, your group is rotated out. You hand off your sword and head toward the training tent for debrief. On the way, you stop near a water barrel and splash your face. The cool liquid shocks your skin, washing away the beginnings of sweat. Your hair, still clean from the morning's rinse, feels lighter somehow. You pat your cheeks dry with a scrap of linen. Inside the tent, the atmosphere is warm and shadowed. You settle onto a stool as a junior officer outlines tomorrow's drill plan. Nothing surprising, formation work. A long march, maybe javelin throws if the weather holds. You nod, half listening, letting your breathing slow. You've earned another moment of stillness. After the meeting, you wander toward the medica station, not for treatment, just curiosity. Inside, the surgeon's tools gleam from their hooks: bronze scalpels, tweezers, cups for cupping therapy, even a tiny cautery iron. Near the back wall, you spot jars of bath herbs, chamomile, lavender, and something pungent and peppery, maybe mint. They mix them into the oil sometimes, you recall. Especially for men with skin ailments or sore joints. Even the ill are expected to be washed. Whenever possible, you're reminded of a story you heard, an officer claiming that unwashed soldiers fought worse. Not because of disease, but because of morale. Filth, he said, made men forget their dignity. Made them feel like animals. And Romans, above all else, were supposed to feel superior. Even out here in the woods, surrounded by mist and mystery, that sense of pride began at the bathhouse. A low bell rings from the edge of camp, messengers announcing midday rest. You take the long path back to your tent, passing the fire pits and the empty shield racks. A few men are already lined up at the secondary bath station, stripped to the waist, passing time with idle jokes and exaggerated yawns. One offers you a nod. You return it, feeling the weight of the day settle gently on your shoulders, not yet burdensome. As you duck into your tent, you catch sight of your towel, now dry and folded. The strigil hangs from a hook, gleaming slightly in the muted light. You run a finger along its curve. Not elegant. Not pretty. But essential. You settle on your cot, hands behind your head, and let your eyes drift toward the flap of canvas rippling gently in the wind. Outside, the camp moves through its own set of rhythms: bathing, marching, scraping, eating, drilling. And somehow, this repetition becomes its own kind of comfort. Like the soft scratch of metal across oiled skin. Like the sigh that follows a morning dip in the river. The afternoon unfolds slowly, like parchment curling under the sun. You lie on your cot just a few minutes longer, eyes half closed, listening to the soft murmur of life beyond the tent walls, the rhythmic thump of someone chopping wood, the distant cadence of Latin phrases shouted during vocabulary drills, and, floating over it all, the clink of buckets near the bathhouse fire pits. That unmistakable language of water being prepared, you rise eventually, drawn by the gentle tug of routine rather than urgency. The soldiers on balnita duty are already at work. You stroll over to watch, not as a superior or a critic, just as one more tired body drawn to the soothing promise of heat and steam. The bathhouse, this one smaller than those in Rome, but tidy and well-maintained, stands at the edge of the camp like a patient animal, all warm stone and blackened chimney smoke. A pair of soldiers are hauling logs to feed the hypercaust, the underfloor furnace that heats the baths from below. It's simple genius, really. Raise the floor on pillars, feed a fire underneath, and let the stone do the rest. Not bad, you think, for something cobbled together on the edge of nowhere. The air near the entrance is already warming, thick with the earthy scent of damp stone and singed oak. One soldier is testing the water temperature with the back of his hand, grumbling in a theatrical voice about how the last batch nearly boiled his toes off. You chuckle under your breath. These are the kinds of exaggerations that pass for conversation when everyone's heard each other's actual stories too many times. There's something almost theatrical about the shift in atmosphere as evening bath prep begins. Gone is the stiff formality of drills. The soldiers move more casually now, sleeves rolled up, tunics damp from sweat and steam. One hums tunelessly as he stirs a bucket of water laced with cheap rose oil. Another uses a worn rag to polish the stone benches, as if he's preparing for dinner guests rather than tired comrades, and you notice, perhaps for the first time, how strangely beautiful this daily ritual is. How something as basic as water being warmed over fire, carried by hand, poured into tubs lined with stone or packed earth, becomes its own kind of ceremony. No priests, no chants, but still sacred in a very Roman way. Cleanliness here isn't just comfort. It's order, discipline, dignity. Inside, the caldarium, the hottest room, is starting to fill with mist. It clings to the walls like memory. The strigils have been laid out on a bench, their bronze hooks catching the flickering light of the torches. You pick one up, running your thumb along the edge. Dull, but deliberate. Made for scraping sweat and oil, not drawing blood. A different kind of warfare. Two soldiers enter behind you, voices low. One's limping slightly, complaining about a pulled muscle during drills. The other nods toward the heated stones and says, "Sit near there. Helps the ache." And just like that, you're watching a form of care play out, unspoken, unsentimental, but real. The bathhouse isn't just a place to wash. It's a social balm. A place to complain, to compare scars, to ask advice about the rash you don't want to show your commanding officer. Soon, more men filter in. Some with towels slung over their shoulders, others clutching jars of oil, olive oil mostly, cheap and thick, sometimes mixed with local herbs or imported lavender if a trader passed through recently. A few go straight to the laconicum, the dry sweating room, sitting on the upper stone ledges with their backs to the wall, heads tilted back like contented statues. The noise inside swells, not raucous, but full of texture. Laughter, the occasional splash, the scrape of a strigil along a back. Conversations drift from gossip about a centurion's mysterious girlfriend back in Gaul, to debates about whether wine causes more pimples than beer. Somewhere nearby, someone's arguing, gently, that washing your feet first is bad luck. No one agrees, but the sentiment is charming. As you sit in the tepidarium, the medium warm room, you lean back and exhale. The heat seeps into your shoulders like a balm. You close your eyes and feel the weight of the day slipping off you, slowly but surely, like armor unbuckled by invisible hands. Your skin begins to glisten, not with battle sweat but with a kind of soft release. You reach for the oil jar beside you. The smell is strong, peppery with a hint of basil. You dip your fingers in and begin rubbing it into your arms, the oil thick but comforting. Once your skin is slick, You take the strigil and drag it gently across your forearm. The sensation is oddly satisfying, a subtle pull, a light scrape, and then the trail of grime and oil left behind, like yesterday's tension being peeled away. A fellow soldier offers to do your back, and you return the favor. Neither of you speak. The scraping is its own language. A few others watch with envy, waiting for their turn, and someone mutters, "We should have a rota for this." He's ignored. No one wants to formalize what's already working. Outside, the sky begins to darken. Shadows stretch longer across the camp. The bathhouse glows from within, torches flickering in niches along the wall. The air smells like warm skin, soapwort, and scorched wood. Somewhere beyond, the Rhine flows silently past, dark and endless. You linger a bit longer, letting the warmth do its work. You think about how this routine, this predictable, almost sacred order, grounds you. How each bath reminds you that you're not just a cog in a machine. You're a body. A person. Capable of feeling, of relaxing, of laughing at jokes about footluck and pimple wine. Eventually, you'll dry off with a coarse linen towel, your skin flushed and fragrant. You'll slip back into your tunic, feeling oddly reborn. But for now, you just sit, quiet and clean, the echo of dripping water filling the space between heartbeats. You step out of the bathhouse slowly, the cool evening air wrapping around your newly scrubbed skin like a silk sheet dipped in mountain water. It's not unpleasant, just sharp enough to remind you that you're alive, and that this isn't some marble-clad fantasy in the heart of Rome, but a functioning outpost perched on the soggy edge of the empire. The path back to your tent is gravelly, worn by countless sandals. Your soles, softened from the heat, feel every pebble, every bend. The torchlight flickers across the stones, casting golden ghosts on the ground. And still, behind you, the bathhouse hums, a low warmth, both literal and social, simmering in the night air. You wonder how many men stay just a little longer than necessary. Not because they're dirty, but because it's the only place they can forget their soldiers for a few minutes. Your tent is still, your cot cool. You sit on the edge and pull on your fresh tunic, one you set aside earlier just for post-bath comfort. It smells faintly of crushed bay leaves, a tiny luxury someone in camp smuggled in from a nearby merchant. You sink into the fabric like it's something grander than rough-spun wool. Soon, the scent of dinner wafts through the camp. Lentils tonight, maybe some barley bread, and a hint of garlic so faint it may be imagined. Meals are simple here, no grand feasts or exotic platters. But after a proper scrub, even boiled cabbage can taste like something plated in silver. You follow the smell toward the communal mess, joining a slow procession of freshly bathed, sleepy-eyed comrades. The benches are worn smooth, the tables slightly sticky with oil and old wine stains. Everyone looks a bit red-faced from the steam, hair still damp. It's a strange kind of unity. Everyone equally soft-skinned and tender for a few fleeting hours. You sit down across from a fellow legionary who's already dipping bread into a thick stew. He raises his spoon in greeting. You do the same. There's talk around the table, nothing too serious. A discussion about a stolen sandal, possibly eaten by a goat. Someone claims the Rhine is home to water spirits that tangle your hair if you bathe in it after sundown. Someone else counters that it's not spirits, just bad grooming. Laughter, clinks of spoons, the occasional snort. The food is decent. Warm. Filling. You sop up the last of the stew with the edge of your bread and wash it down with a weak cup of wine, watered heavily but still carrying the ghost of grapes. It's not intoxicating, just enough to dull the edges of the day. After dinner, you wander the camp for a bit, enjoying the hush that's fallen over it. A few groups are clustered around fires, trading stories, tuning out. Others sit in small circles, rubbing ointment into joints or comparing calluses. One man is carefully trimming his beard with a sharpened shell, muttering that he's going to write home for a real razor. You make your way to the edge of camp where the latrines are, because no part of life, not even the least glamorous ones, escape a soldier's routine. Even the latrines, in their own way, reflect the Roman obsession with cleanliness and order. Dug channels, running water where possible, sponges on sticks soaked in vinegar. Not luxurious, but systematic. Thorough. On your way back, you pass a pair of younger soldiers whispering to each other about tomorrow's rota. One groans when he realizes he's been assigned first turn at the water carts. You keep walking, the rhythm of their complaints oddly soothing in its predictability. You pause near the fire pits again, watching the embers glow low. A few men are heating water in small kettles, planning to soak their feet before bed. You consider joining them, but your limbs are already so loose, your body so relaxed, that it feels like even lifting your boots would be too ambitious. Instead, you find a spot to sit, a low wall near the training yard. From here, you can just make out the silhouette of the Rhine in the distance, a dark ribbon cutting through the land, moving slowly and endlessly like time itself. You think about how many others have stared at that same river, in the same stillness, wondering what they're doing here. And like you, they probably found that question evaporated after a bath and a bowl of stew. The stars start appearing above, shy at first, then bolder. You pull your cloak around your shoulders and let the quiet sink in. This camp, despite its mud and rules and odd drafty corners, has a rhythm that's hard to resist. Wake, march, drill. Bathe, eat, sleep. Repeat. A life worn smooth by repetition. Somewhere to your left, someone begins softly humming a song from Italia, low, slow, and probably nostalgic. It's impossible to tell if it's about love, home, or simply clean sheets. But you feel it settle in your chest like warmth. Eventually, your body reminds you this has been a long day, and rest is not a luxury here, it's a duty. You rise, your joints cracking in a friendly, familiar way, and walk slowly back toward your tent. The torches flicker lower now, the camp wrapped in a kind of whispering darkness. Even the bathhouse, once glowing and alive, is now silent, still radiating faint heat through its stones. You reach your cot and lie down slowly, one limb at a time, like a scroll being rolled up for the night. The linen against your skin feels cooler than before, but your core remains warm. Clean. Federation tired in the right ways. Outside, the wind rustles the trees beyond the walls. Inside, your breathing matches its rhythm. You let your eyes drift closed, the memory of hot water and warm bread still lingering behind your eyelids. And somewhere, the river flows on. The night holds steady, and when morning comes, it's not with trumpets or dramatic fanfare, just the gentle scratch of sandals on gravel, the distant clang of a pot being set on a fire, and the low grunt of someone stretching out a stubborn back. You wake slowly, your body cocooned in the memory of yesterday's warmth. The bath has left you softened, your muscles loosened like a well-oiled hinge. You sit up on your cot, blinking at the weak morning light filtering through the tent flap. The air carries that familiar Rhineland damp, neither quite mist nor drizzle, but something persistent that clings to skin and cloth alike. You shiver once, instinctively pulling your cloak closer before standing. The cloak smells faintly of the fire pit, smoke, ash, a hint of sap. Outside, the camp is stirring with practiced quiet. A few soldiers are already tending to the morning fire, coaxing embers back to life with bellows made from stitched goat skin. Breakfast is on the way, something simple, as always. Porridge thick enough to stand a spoon in, maybe some honey if the supply caravan was generous, or raisins if someone had the foresight to squirrel them away from last week's rations. You join the others near the fire, steaming cups of barley water passing from hand to hand. Not exactly thrilling, but it warms your belly and sharpens your focus. Across from you, someone is already complaining that they slept poorly, blaming a phantom stone under their mattress. Someone else claims they slept like a senator, though no one knows exactly what that means. It gets a chuckle anyway, once the morning meal is done and the cooking gear cleaned. With the efficiency of men who know every moment of rest is borrowed, the day's duties are handed out. You're on patrol near the riverbank today, easy enough, no heavy marching, just a slow amble along the muddy edge of Empire with a companion or two. The patrol route takes you past the outer fields where the auxiliary troops sometimes practice javelin throws, their shouts carried on the breeze. You nod at them as you pass, their drills a blur of motion and sweat. Then the land opens up, low grasses, the occasional copse of trees, and that ever-present ribbon of water, the Rhine, flowing silently alongside like a patient observer. As you walk, your boots squelch through soft earth, and birdsong drifts down from unseen branches. You spot a local farmer in the distance, hauling a basket of something green and leafy, perhaps cabbages, though it's hard to tell at this range. He lifts a hand in greeting. You return it, and your companion jokes about trading bath tokens for fresh vegetables. It's a tempting thought. Further along the patrol path, you stop briefly to check a section of palisade for storm damage. A few of the stakes have shifted in the night, the result of the sodden ground giving way. You note it for the engineers. Repairs will be needed later, likely after drills, possibly before the next round of baths. The thought of the next bath creeps in again, doesn't it? Once you've felt that deep, quiet comfort, the way the heat seeps into your marrow and pulls the weariness out like a splinter, your mind starts looking forward to it before the sweat has even returned. It becomes less a luxury and more a fixed point in your day. Like the setting sun, or that one fellow who always sings off-key while scrubbing his back. You and your companion loop back toward camp by midday, your patrol uneventful except for one unexpected discovery, a small carved figure half buried in the river mud. You fish it out, some kind of votive offering, perhaps. Worn, water smoothed. A crudely carved animal, maybe a bear or a boar, hard to tell. You wipe it clean on your tunic and pocket it. Not for superstition, just because it feels like a story waiting to be told. Back at camp, you check in with the centurion, make your report, and stow your gear. Your tunic is flecked with mud, your boots caked, your arms itching from where the damp has seeped into the sleeves. And once again, the tug of routine, time to clean up, time to feel like more than a mud-streaked sentinel. You hear the telltale creak of the bathhouse doors opening, and even from here, a faint curl of steam is visible against the slate sky. Inside, preparations are already underway again. A new batch of logs being fed into the hypercaust. The same familiar voices echoing off the stone. Someone has placed sprigs of pine needles in a shallow bowl near the entrance, a small touch, probably done on a whim. But it gives the place a pleasant, bracing scent. Like bathing in a forest you don't have to hike through, you hang your cloak near the doorway, already loosening the ties of your tunic. The heat beckons like a lover. In the tepidarium, the air is misty, the floor slick with condensation. You sit again on your usual spot along the bench, this time next to a pair of soldiers debating whether strigils should be sharpened or left blunt. The answer, of course, depends on whether you've got back hair. You oil your arms methodically, the motion familiar and calming. Overhead, the rafters drip rhythmically, droplets landing in slow, deliberate beats. You drag the strigil along your shoulder, then down your back, passing it off with a silent nod to the man beside you. He doesn't thank you aloud, no need. The ritual speaks for itself. In the caldarium, the heat hits heavier today. More logs, maybe. The air feels thick enough to chew, your breath slow and humid. You close your eyes and just listen, water dripping, men sighing, the low scrape of skin being cleaned. This isn't a place for conversation anymore. It's a place for surrender. And you do surrender to the warmth, the repetition, the familiar ache that's soothed by fire-heated floors and simple rituals. Your hands, once tense from gripping your spear, now rest loosely on your thighs. Your shoulders drop. Even your thoughts quiet down. When you finally rise, skin glowing and heart steady, you feel not just clean, but restored. And as the bathhouse door creaks open behind you, letting in the cool bite of late afternoon, you think, briefly, drowsily, that perhaps even the mud of the Rhine isn't so bad, so long as it leads you back here. Your feet trace the familiar path back from the bathhouse, each step squishing slightly as water trickles down from your calves into your sandals. It's a minor annoyance, less irritating than a scratchy tunic, more noticeable than a pebble in your shoe, but you've learned not to care too much about wet feet. Everything dries eventually. Except maybe gossip. You pass the same goat tethered near the bread ovens, eyeing you suspiciously as though it knows you still blame it for the disappearing sandal incident. You nod at it out of respect, or perhaps resignation. It blinks slowly. The quiet truce continues. Back at your tent, you wriggle into your softer set of linens, the ones you reserve for post-bath lounging. A small luxury, but one that makes you feel less like a soldier and more like a man who might, in another life, be a poet. Or at the very least, a merchant with a fondness for reclining. The camp buzzes softly with afternoon routines. Some soldiers sharpen weapons, not out of urgency, but out of habit. Others mend torn tunics or sort gear. A few loaf in the shade, boots kicked off, eyes half closed as if testing the waters of an impromptu nap. You decide to do something between useful and indulgent: laundry. A shallow basin, lukewarm water, a chunk of pumice soap that's half gravel, half perfume. You sit cross-legged, scrubbing one tunic while keeping an eye on a nearby group playing dice with pebbles. They cheer when someone rolls a pair of smooth ones, apparently lucky. As you wring out your shirt, you hear a soft snore nearby. One of the newer recruits has nodded off, seated upright with his chin on his chest, arms crossed like a petulant statue. You consider waking him but choose mercy instead. Let him dream of anything but drills for a while. Later in the afternoon, you're assigned to help with water transport. It's not a glamorous task, but it puts you in close proximity to one of the more peaceful parts of the camp, the filtration barrels and cisterns near the spring-fed well. Wooden beams support a tiled roof overhead, meant to keep leaves and bird droppings out of the precious water. A small trickle flows into a stone trough, where someone set wildflowers in a row, likely for no reason other than they were nearby and pretty. You hoist the first amphora with care. Water is always heavier than you remember. Each step toward the communal storehouse is a mini pilgrimage, one that earns you nods of gratitude from men less eager to carry their own weight today. After several trips, your shoulders protest gently, and you reward them with a few shoulder rolls that make your joints sound like gravel being stirred. As evening draws near, preparations begin for the next round of bathing. Yes, again. Roman discipline, you realize, is built on layers of routine, training, eating, cleaning. And the crown jewel of it all? Cleanliness. To be Roman, even on the edge of empire, is to be washed, perfumed, and scraped like a prize turnip. You're not scheduled for another bath tonight. One a day is enough by camp standards, but you accompany a friend who is. A kind of moral support, or perhaps just an excuse to bask in the steam one more time. You lean against a column in the apoditerium. The changing room, as your friend disrobes. He's complaining about a mysterious rash. Another man suggests it might be the camp wine. Or the soap. Or the curse of a Dacian witch. Everyone has theories, no one offers help. The man shrugs and heads toward the tepidarium, scratching lightly. The bathhouse at twilight is a different creature, quieter, less crowded. The light filters in through small high windows, slanting across the mist like golden fingers. You sit in the corner, not bathing but observing, your body still warm from your earlier visit. There's something hypnotic about the rhythm, the scrape of the strigil, the splash of water ladled over shoulders, the murmured conversation slowed by heat. You find yourself tracing shapes in the steam with your eyes. A horse. A gladius. Possibly a poorly rendered fish. Or a sandal. The goat would be amused. Later, as your friend emerges pink-faced and satisfied, you both walk back slowly, picking your way through the muddy spots where the camp's drainage system continues its eternal struggle with northern weather. You detour briefly past the latrines, an unglamorous but essential errand. Everything in camp, no matter how personal, has a routine. Even dignity has its schedule. At the center of the camp, a group has gathered for story time. Not officially, of course, No scrolls or bards here, but informal tales spun by the older veterans, most of them highly embellished. One is talking about a campaign in the East where, allegedly, soldiers bathed in milk. Another insists the best baths are in Gaul, where the steam smells of lavender. Everyone pretends to believe him. You sit on the edge of the circle, listening as your limbs grow heavy. The firelight flickers on tired faces, steam still rising faintly from shoulders. The storyteller's voice is low, almost conspiratorial, which makes you lean in. And then, just as he's about to slip into the bath, he finds a snake curled in the water. Not a metaphor. A real snake. Big eyes. Sharp teeth. The whole legion was terrified, of course. You wonder if the snake ever got cleaned as the tail winds down, so do you. You stretch once, spine popping gently, and bid the group a soft good night. They nod in return, voices dropping even lower. You pull your cloak tight and shuffle back to your tent, savoring the last few moments of wakefulness. The air is cooler now. Stars overhead blink lazily, like they're considering sleep themselves. In the distance, the Rhine murmurs its usual lullaby. Unchanged and unimpressed by human affairs, you lie down again, pulling the covers over your chest, and exhale slowly. Your skin still carries the faint scent of oil and steam, your thoughts slow and warm. Today, you think, was a good day. You dream lightly, drifting between memories and the muffled sounds of the camp at night. A clatter of armor here, a cough there, a soft snore punctuated by a soldier shifting in his cot nearby. Somewhere not far off, a dog barks once and then falls silent. The scent of smoke and damp will lingers like a blanket you never quite take off. By the time the next morning arrives, it does so like a whisper. The sky is the color of old parchment, the kind that's been left too close to the hearth. You rise slowly, limbs stiff but rested. Your tunic is slightly less wrinkled than usual, thanks to the bath, and your joints don't protest quite so loudly as you stretch. You step outside and catch sight of the river immediately. The Rhine is a sheet of glass, unmoving, reflecting a sky that's unsure what it wants to be, cloudy or clear. You yawn, scratch absently at your beard, and shuffle toward the camp hearth, where the first embers of breakfast preparation glow gently beneath a pile of ash. Someone passes you a warm flatbread and a half-melted cube of cheese. You thank them without words and chew slowly, your brain still stretching itself awake. Around you, the others perform their own morning rituals, sharpening a dagger, polishing a buckle, mumbling a prayer to a household god etched into a coin. Today, your name is listed on the cleaning rota. Not glamorous, then again, few things are. Your task? Scrubbing down a segment of the communal water barrels used for laundry and fire safety. Not the most thrilling job, but oddly satisfying. There's something about turning a stained surface back to pale wood that makes you feel in control. Like you're carving order into the day with a rag and a bucket. As you work, you overhear another group talking about the newest recruits, young men just arrived from the southern provinces, still sunburnt and wide-eyed. One apparently asked if there were lions this far north. The group chuckles, and you smile. It's always lions with the new ones. No one ever expects mud or mildew to be the true daily threat. By midday, your arms are sore and wet to the elbows, and your tunic is clinging to your back in all the wrong places. You pause to take a drink from a nearby jug, water infused with herbs, subtle and grassy. As you tip it back, someone nearby begins talking about the philosophy of bathing. Yes, really, it's not just about being clean. He says, gesturing with the passion of a man who's thought about this far too much. It's symbolic, isn't it? Washing away the day. The stress. The burden of command. His companion snorts. You command your sandals, maybe. Undeterred, the philosopher continues, Cato said the bathhouse made men soft. But maybe soft isn't always bad. You chuckle and keep scrubbing. There's something oddly poetic in his rambling, though it's hard to be poetic when you're fishing out soggy leaves from the bottom of a barrel. In the afternoon, a new shipment of olive oil arrives. Not much, just a few amphorae, carefully rolled from cart to storeroom. The supply clerk runs his hands along the stoppers like a man reunited with an old friend. You imagine how the oil will be rationed, some for cooking, some for lamplight, and a portion reserved for the bathhouse. This reminds you, tonight, you're invited to a private soak. Not officially sanctioned, of course. Just a handful of off-duty soldiers and a friendly engineer who figured out how to redirect a little extra hot water into one of the disused side rooms. Quiet, unofficial, and gently rebellious. The perfect evening. When the time comes, the group meets behind the bathhouse. A makeshift curtain has been hung up to create a bit of privacy. The room inside is smaller than the usual chambers, but that only makes the heat more concentrated. Someone has brought a small amphora of wine, and another produces a satchel of dried figures. Contraband comfort, you strip down and ease into the hot water slowly, the heat wrapping around you like a thick, wet cloak. The others settle in beside you, some sighing aloud, others simply closing their eyes. The only sounds are dripping condensation and the occasional plop of a fig into a mouth. Someone lights a small oil lamp, placing it near the edge of the bath. The flame flickers, casting long shadows on the stone walls. It's a scene worthy of a mosaic, naked forms in repose, eyes glazed, thoughts drifting somewhere between then and now. A voice murmurs, "Do you think they'll remember us?" Another replies, "Only if we lose a war." You laugh, a quiet, snorting kind of laugh that fogs up the air in front of your face. Or if we build something worth remembering. Like this bath? Exactly. They raise imaginary goblets in toast, and for a moment, everything feels suspended. The war, the mud, the long letters home, and the even longer silences. All of it tucked away beneath a ceiling of dripping rafters and warm fog. As the evening stretches on, no one feels the need to leave right away. There's no bell to toll bedtime, no officer to shout orders. Just the slow dimming of the world outside and the heavy warmth inside pressing everyone gently towards sleep. Eventually, someone stirs. They joke that if they don't leave now, they'll drown in their own dreams. Everyone takes that as the cue to move. You dry off lazily, wrapping yourself in the softest towel you've managed to keep hidden. Your skin glows, flushed with heat and scrubbed clean. It's still dark when you're stirred from sleep by the dull clink of a chainmail tunic being folded nearby. One of the early watchmen is returning, his armor humid with mist and dew, the faint metallic scent of it drifting through the tent like a forgotten memory. You roll over, the linen sticking momentarily to your skin, and consider pretending to sleep longer. But there's a whisper of anticipation in the air, a change, a task, maybe even a new schedule. And in a Roman camp, that always begins with washing, you rise slowly, knees popping, and tug on your tunic. A little stiffer today, but nothing a walk and a splash of cold water won't solve. Outside, the sky is still navy blue, speckled with the final reluctant stars. Campfire sputter as breakfast prep begins again. You make your way to the small auxiliary basin near the edge of camp, one of the many cleverly arranged by the engineers to catch overflow from the spring-fed baths. This water isn't heated. In fact, it's the kind that makes you wince as you wash your face, eyes snapping fully awake the moment the chill hits your temples. You splash it generously, letting the shock shake off the last of sleep. Around you, a few other soldiers are doing the same, muttering half-jokes through gritted teeth. One of them, an older veteran missing part of one ear, says between gulps of air, "I'd rather face a barbarian charge than that basin in December." Another adds, "At least barbarians don't slap you in the face." The basin becomes a silent test of character every morning, the sort of thing no scroll will ever bother to record, but you suspect it shapes men more than any drill ever could. After the splash-wake ritual, you make your way toward the bathhouse. Not for a full soak this time, today you're assisting in a minor repair. The hypercourse system under one of the caldarium floors has started leaking smoke into the wrong channel, leaving a thin trail curling up from a vent that isn't supposed to be used. Nothing dangerous yet, but a sign that some bricks have shifted or cracked. The engineer in charge, a squat man with calloused hands and a way of speaking like every sentence is a secret, lets you carry tools and hold oil lamps. You don't mind. It gives you a rare view of the bathhouse's underbelly, a world of bricks, archways, and ash. You crouch beside him as he inspects the channels, tapping gently with the handle of a hammer, listening like the floor is whispering to him. You see, he says, motioning for you to crouch lower, the fire needs to breathe right. Too much ash in the wrong spot, and she coughs like an old woman with wet sandals. You're not entirely sure what that means, but you nod solemnly. Together, you slide a flat tile back into place, redirecting the smoke as intended. It's not glamorous, but it feels important. And when the steam later rises through the right vent, curling just the way it should, there's a quiet sense of victory shared between you both. As you're heading out, you hear someone humming from the frigidarium. A young recruit again. One of the southern lads who still thinks cold water is just another challenge to conquer. You peek inside and see him submerged up to the shoulders, arms out, eyes closed, lips forming the words of an old provincial lullaby. You smile. Give it a month, you think. He'll be cursing the chill like the rest of us. Later in the day, you catch a short break between duties. You wander toward the edge of camp, where a few flat stones form a casual lookout over the river. The Rhine is busier than usual, traders on the far bank, their canoes piled high with goods. You sit, letting your toes stretch in the sun, and breathe in that unmistakable blend of river water, pine, and distant charcoal. Behind you, voices carry from the bathhouse. Someone's arguing about soap. Lye is too harsh. It eats the linen. It eats the filth. That's the point. You chuckle and lean back, letting the sun warm your face. There's something oddly delightful about living in a place where people get as worked up over soap as they do over battle formations. You think, briefly, about the debates you've overheard: olive oil versus goose fat for moisturizing, sand versus pumice for scrubbing, the relative merits of lavender, pine resin, and whatever that sticky stuff was from the last shipment. In the bathhouse, everyone's a philosopher or a critic. By early evening, the water in the baths has been reheated, and the stone floors have recovered their familiar warmth. You aren't scheduled for a soak, but you're pulled in by the scent of fresh eucalyptus branches, recently acquired and now floating in one of the caldarium tubs. Some kind soul tossed them in, hoping for medicinal effects or just something new to smell. You find a corner of the room where the light is low and the heat is just enough to coax sweat from your pores without making you woozy. Around you, a few familiar faces sit slouched in varying degrees of relaxation, their words soft and unhurried. One is recounting a rumor about a new kind of soap arriving from Hispania, apparently made from some wild plant that smells like baked apples. Another insists that certain officers are secretly importing perfumes to add to their post-bath routine. The suggestion draws laughter and mock scandal. It's in these small, drowsy conversations that you begin to understand the real function of the bathhouse. Sure, it's about hygiene. Sure, it's about Roman identity and military order. But more than that, it's about permission to slow down. To sit. To let the day settle. Someone shifts beside you and sighs, "I'd be fine if I died right here. Just let them bury me under the tile and carry on." Another mumbles, "You're not worth the good tiles." Everyone laughs, lazily, too tired to take offense. The steam has a way of softening egos as much as it does muscles. Eventually, the light outside begins to dim. You pat your skin dry with a rough cloth, pulling your tunic back over still damp shoulders. It clings slightly. You don't mind. As you walk back through the camp, you pass by the small shrine near the southern gate. Someone has left an offering, flowers, neatly arranged beside a carved stone head of Apollo. A reminder that cleanliness, beauty, and health all fall under the same divine umbrella. The gods, like soldiers, apparently appreciate a good bath. You take the long way back to your tent, enjoying the quiet. Each corner of the camp holds a faint echo of the day, laughter, water, warmth, and the scrape of strigils. Everything in its place. Everything rinsed clean, ready to begin again tomorrow. You wake to the sound of distant bells, low and slow, carried by the soft morning breeze. The camp is still cloaked in a gentle fog, which clings to your skin like a whisper as you pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. The Rhine glints faintly through the mist, like a silver ribbon laid out just for you. You take a deep breath and savor the cool air before beginning your day. Today, your attention turns to the rituals surrounding the bathhouse's cleaning schedule. It might sound mundane, but the order and rhythm of washing down the marble slabs, scrubbing the wooden benches, and rinsing the tiled floors are crucial to the bathhouse's charm. Without this, the place would descend into chaos, and no one wants to bathe where a stray fish scale or muddy boot print lingers. You join a small crew, buckets in hand, as they carry water from the well and mix it with a gentle solution of herbs, sage, thyme, and a touch of rosemary. The scent rises with each splash and sweep of the mop, mingling with the ever-present aroma of damp stone and burnt wood. It's strangely comforting, like the camp itself is taking a deep breath and resetting. As you work, you overhear a discussion about the bathhouse's role beyond the military routine. A grizzled centurion argues that the baths serve as a vital communal space, more than just a place to clean off the day's grime. The baths, he says, voice low and steady, are where the camp remembers it is a community. Soldiers may fight alone, but we bathe together. This idea resonates with you. The baths are a stage for camaraderie and quiet reflection alike. You recall moments of laughter shared over debates about the best kind of olive oil soap or the odd way one soldier tries to dry his hair by waving it at the fire. Later, as you carry a bucket to the latrine area, you pass a group of younger soldiers practicing their formations. The contrast between their precise movements and the unhurried cleaning ritual is striking. One young recruit pauses to watch you for a moment, perhaps wondering why scrubbing stone slabs can feel like an important duty. You smile to yourself and keep going, knowing that the bathhouse's rituals teach patience and humility, qualities often overlooked in the heat of battle. As the day wears on, you take a moment to appreciate the bathhouse's architecture, the vaulted ceilings, the carefully crafted drains, the mosaic floors that tell stories of gods and rivers. It's a space designed not only for hygiene but for calm. A little island of warmth in the otherwise damp and muddy camp, the afternoon sun filters through the high windows, casting golden light on the swirling steam. You find yourself drawn back inside, where the warm air envelops you like a soft blanket. Nearby, a few soldiers are quietly singing an old folk tune, their voices barely louder than the drip of water from a leaking pipe. You settle into a warm corner, closing your eyes and letting the sounds wash over you. The world feels far away, and the rhythm of water and soft voices lulls your thoughts toward sleep even as the day continues outside. When evening comes, you help prepare the bathhouse for the final soak of the day. Fresh branches of bay and cedar are laid across the benches, their scent rich and soothing. A pot of herbal tea is brewed nearby, promising comfort for tired muscles and restless minds. As you sink into the warm water, the heat seeps deep into your bones. You let out a contented sigh, the soft crackle of the fire blending with the gentle murmur of conversation. Around you, the day's burden seemed to melt away, carried off by the steam and the shared quiet. You think about the rhythms of Roman camp life, the marching, the guarding, the scrubbing and soaking, and how the bathhouse stitches it all together. Without this steady, soothing ritual, the camp might feel more like a battlefield and less like a home. But here, in the steam and the soft glow of lamps, you find a moment of peace. And with that peace comes the gentle reminder that even soldiers need time to rest, to cleanse, and to dream. The morning light filters softly through your tent's flap, and the faint scent of wet earth and wood smoke drifts in with the breeze. You stretch slowly, muscles still a little stiff from yesterday's duties, and step outside into the quiet hum of camp life just waking. Somewhere nearby, water splashes as a soldier practices the daily ablutions ritual, a gentle sound that seems to set the pace for the coming day. Today, your focus shifts to the humble tools of the bathhouse, the strigils, the oils, the soaps, and the linen towels, that together weave the fabric of Roman cleanliness. You join a small group tasked with inventory and preparation, a surprisingly thoughtful duty that requires a patient eye and a steady hand. The strigils, those curved metal scrapers, lie lined up on a wooden table, gleaming faintly in the early light. You pick one up, feeling its weight and smooth curve. They're simple yet essential, designed to scrape away oil, sweat, and dirt after a soak. You remember how awkward it felt the first time you tried to use one without turning yourself into a patchwork of scratches. Now, it's almost second nature, the movement a kind of dance between skin and metal. Nearby, jars of scented oils catch your eye, fragrant blends of olive oil mixed with lavender, rose, and even something spicier, perhaps cedarwood. The oils are used not just for cleansing but for soothing the skin, protecting it from the drying effects of the cold river water and long marches. You try to imagine the subtle scents mingling with the heavy steam of the caldarium, creating a kind of perfumed sanctuary. Linen towels are folded with care, their edges neat and even. You take a moment to appreciate their softness, woven from flax and sometimes imported from distant provinces. It's odd to think that something so delicate accompanies the rough life of a soldier, but it's one of those small comforts that make the hard days bearable. As you arrange the supplies, the camp's barber surgeon arrives with a small collection of herbs and ointments. He's a wiry man with a dry wit and a surprising knack for storytelling. He tells you about the medicinal properties of some of the bathhouse's offerings, the pine resin that helps ease aching muscles, the mint that clears the sinuses, the gentle balm for sunburned skin after long hours under the open sky. You listen, intrigued, as he describes the rituals of care that extend beyond washing, how bathing was a form of therapy, a moment to mend both body and spirit. You think about the debates that swirl in the camp, how often to bathe, which oils are best, whether the cold plunge after a hot soak is invigorating or just plain miserable. Later, you watch as soldiers prepare for their turn in the baths, each with their own method and pace. Some are quick and efficient, scrubbing and rinsing before settling in the warm water. Others linger, enjoying the slow process, sometimes even dozing off in the heat. The bathhouse becomes a theater of quiet habits and personal rituals, a place where the grind of military life softens into a more human rhythm. You catch a glimpse of a young recruit nervously clutching his first strigil, his movements hesitant. A seasoned soldier gently offers guidance, demonstrating the gentle scraping technique with patience. You can almost feel the transfer of knowledge, the unspoken camaraderie that binds you all. As the day wears on, you help prepare fresh linen and oil for the next cycle, your hands steady and practiced. The sun climbs higher, casting warm light over the camp, and you feel the steady pulse of life here, the mingling of water, warmth, and whispered conversation. By evening, the bathhouse glows softly under oil lamps, steam rising in lazy spirals. You sink into the familiar warmth, the oil on your skin a soothing reminder of the day's small victories. Around you, the hum of voices fades into a gentle murmur, and as you relax, you realize that these quiet routines, this careful tending of self and community, are what make the long days on the Rhine not just bearable, but somehow meaningful. The sun has just dipped below the horizon, casting a soft orange glow over the camp. You find yourself walking slowly toward the bathhouse, the cooling air brushing against your damp skin. Tonight, the focus is on the communal rituals tied to evening bathing, the unspoken customs, the quiet exchanges, and the small moments that knit the soldiers together after a day of duties. As you enter, the familiar warmth of the caldarium envelops you like a gentle embrace. The steam swirls lazily around the stone pillars, carrying the faint scent of pine and lavender. The chatter is subdued, voices low and relaxed. You notice how the bathhouse is both a refuge and a stage, where stories unfold without hurry. You find a spot near the warm water and settle in, letting the heat seep deep into your muscles. Nearby, a group is quietly discussing the peculiar customs surrounding bathing in different parts of the empire. One soldier, recently returned from Egypt, mentions the use of scented oils infused with lotus flower, describing it as like bathing in a dream. Another talks about the bathhouses in Britannia, where the waters are cooler and the routines more brisk, This exchange reminds you that while the Roman bathhouse may seem uniform, it is actually a mosaic of traditions and adaptations, each camp adding its own flavor to the timeless ritual. It's a living history, unfolding in steam and soap. Later, you observe the small but meaningful acts of care between soldiers. A man helps his companion scrub away the dirt behind his back, another passes a fresh towel without a word, the gesture saying everything. These are moments of quiet trust, the kind that build unspoken bonds stronger than any order given on the field. You think about the debates you've overheard over the years, how often one should bathe, the merits of cold versus hot water, the preferred mixtures of herbs and oils. These are not trivial conversations but a testament to the care soldiers take in preserving themselves and each other. As the evening deepens, the bathhouse grows quieter. The warm water and flickering lamps lull you into a calm state, your thoughts drifting like the steam around you. You notice the way the ancient stones absorb the day's heat, slowly releasing it back into the air, much like the camp itself breathes and settles for the night. Before leaving, you take a moment at the basin to splash cool water on your face. A gentle shock that wakes you just enough to appreciate the calm. You towel off slowly, savoring the softness of the linen and the lingering scent of oils. Outside, the stars are bright, and the camp is hushed except for the occasional murmur of a late watchman. You feel the weight of the day lifting, replaced by a soothing weariness. The bathhouse has done its work once again, cleansing, comforting, connecting. It is more than stone and water, it is a sanctuary of small kindnesses and steady rhythms that help you face whatever tomorrow might bring. You rise early, the camp still hushed beneath a pale wash of dawn, and you find yourself drawn not to the Rhine but to a nearby thermal spring whispered about in camp rumors. A narrow footpath weaves through dew-lashed ferns and moss-clad stones until you reach a clearing where steam curls upward in delicate tendrils from the earth itself. The spring's water bubbles gently, warm and mineral-rich, a living echo of Roman bath rituals transplanted into this wild borderland. Stepping closer, you sense the ground's subtle vibration, water surfacing from deep underground, carrying with it iron tang and faint sulfur notes that hint at healing power. You remove your sandals and let the steamy vapors kiss your bare feet. The heat seeps into your soles immediately, a slow, centering warmth that spreads upward through your ankles. You feel connected, not just to the spring, but to a lineage of bathers stretching back centuries. Here, the stone-lined pool is rough-hewn rather than finely crafted, but it shares the same purpose you've come to cherish, to cleanse, to soothe, to forge community through shared stillness. Around you, a handful of local villagers stand in respectful silence, wrapped in woolen cloaks, peering at you with curiosity. They've seen soldiers bathing by the Rhine and know too well how water can shape a day. You nod at them, and one elderly woman offers a slow, knowing smile, an unspoken recognition of common humanity. You lower yourself into the water, submerging past your knees, then waist deep. Steam rises in soft wisps around your shoulders, blurring the world's edges. The scent of pine from the surrounding forest mingles with beneath the surface minerals, crafting an aroma that feels both ancient and alive. You close your eyes, tilt your head back, and let the heat pull tension from your muscles. The rock beneath you is smooth, worn by countless swimmers, local and foreign alike. As you float, you recall stories of Roman engineers who harnessed similar springs to feed luxurious bath complexes back in the heart of the empire, built with marble arches and hypocausts, designed to impress. Here, the spring is unadorned, modest in scale, yet no less potent. It prompts you to wonder, did these practices arise independently, or did Roman influence seep into local customs? Scholars still debate the extent of military baths' impact on indigenous spa traditions, and you let that question drift alongside rising steam. A nearby villager dips a clay jar into the overflow channel, filling it with warm water. He offers it to you, a silent gesture of hospitality. You accept, lifting the jar to your lips and tasting the mineral-tinged warmth. It's unlike the barley water or wine rations you're used to. It carries the essence of earth and stone. You let the water wash across your face, the splash a gentle reminder of life's simplicity. You glance at the spit of steam rising from the spring's surface, imagining it as a bridge between epochs, a link from legionary baths on the Rhine to these secluded healing pools. The stones here are uncarved, yet they hold stories of Celts who first discovered the spring, of Roman soldiers who paused on patrol to rest aching limbs, of medieval pilgrims seeking relief from infirmity. Each visitor leaves invisible footprints in the steam. The sun climbs higher, turning mist into golden haze. You stand, allowing the warmth to drain from your limbs, and wrap yourself in a coarse linen cloth that someone has draped nearby. The fabric is rough but comforting, a tactile contrast to the water's enveloping heat. You toweling off, you notice carved initials in the stone edge of the pool, faded Latin letters, perhaps left by a soldier long ago, Marcus Legionis 12. A shiver of connection runs through you. Despite centuries and shifting borders, the impulse to seek warmth and comfort by water endures. You pause a moment, hand on carved stone, feeling the slight pulse of moisture beneath your palm. You wonder again, was this place ever part of a Roman spa network, or did locals simply adapt knowledge gleaned from passing troops? The debate lingers like steam in your mind, unresolved but enriching your sense of place. As you dress, you notice the villagers have moved on, leaving the clearing silent once more. You take a final, lingering look at the spring, its surface calm, its promise unwavering. You pocket a small, smooth pebble from the rim as a keepsake. Its surface warmed by countless hands and stories. Walking back toward camp, you feel strangely light, as though the spring has washed not only physical weariness but also mental fog. Each step toward the Rhine feels infused with new purpose. The morning's ritual at the thermal pool hasn't replaced your military baths, it's complemented them, reminding you that water's healing touch transcends walls and ranks. You rejoin the camp, arriving just as the first detachment heads to the bathhouse for the morning ritual. Steam-wreathed screens dot the riverbank again, screens you've helped erect, tubs you've drawn water for, strigils you've handled countless times. But today, those routines feel reframed through the lens of the spring's raw simplicity. You pause for a moment outside the bathing area, placing your hand on a wooden screen post. The grain is rough, a world apart from the polished stones of the spring, yet serving the same human need. Warm or cold, river rinse or thermal soak, structured or spontaneous, bathing is a universal grammar of comfort. A whistle sounds, calling the first group forward. You step aside and equip your tunic, choosing to let others claim the river. You watch as they file in, water droplets sparkling in the morning sun, voices soft with anticipation. The scene is familiar, yet you see it anew, each gesture, each splash, each shed breath part of a centuries-old dialogue between humanity and water. You smile, adjusting your cloak. Whatever tomorrow brings, march orders, drills, patrols, you know there will always be water waiting. A river to cleanse, a fire-heated bath to soothe, and springs to remind you of deeper currents beneath the empire's surface. The routines endure, carrying whispers of past and present. Local and imperial, private and communal, and as you step back into the camp's steady rhythm, the scholarly debates and carved initials recede into comfort. You carry with you the warmth of the spring and the Rhine, two waters entwined in your memory, both part of a journey you've lived, breathed, and cleansed yourself within. Now, let your breathing slow as the day's warmth rests in your limbs. Picture the river's gentle flow, the spring's rising steam, and the soft swirl of waters around your feet. Each exhale releases tension, your muscles soften, your mind drifts toward rest. Feel the earth beneath you grounding every thought, anchoring you in this moment of calm. Imagine the morning mist lifting from the Rhine, rays of amber sunlight filtering through trees. The same water that carried soldiers' fatigue away now meanders onward, unhurried, carrying you on its timeless journey. Allow that feeling of continuity, centuries of bathers and dreamers, to settle in your chest, a quiet assurance that you are part of something vast and enduring. Sense the echo of hands dipping into thermal pools, the soft scrape of strigils, the murmur of wakeful whispers shared in steam-filled rooms. Let those echoes wash away the last remnants of wakefulness, leaving only warmth and comfort. Each pulse slows, each heartbeat carries the lullaby of flowing water. Your thoughts drift, images ripple, stone-rimmed baths, woven linen towels, carved initials worn smooth by countless touches. Release them gently, like pebbles dropped into a pond, watching the ripples fade. You need not hold on to any one image, just feel the overall sense of cleansing, renewal, and gentle camaraderie. Now, sink deeper into your bed, the linen cool beneath you. Warmth radiating from your core. Know that tomorrow brings new routines, new waters, and fresh beginnings. But tonight, rest in the timeless rhythm of bath and river, steam and stone, knowing you are cleansed and at peace.